Writer's Nest. I'm here this evening at the book signing of Mr. Glenroy Browne. He's written this beautiful book called Angels of the Caribbean. And we're going to talk to Mr. Browne a little bit just to get a sense of what this book, who he is, first of all, the author, what is the man behind, who is the man behind the author, and the book, a little bit of inside information in terms of what the book is about, what inspired him to write this book. So, Mr. Browne, you are originally from the island of St. Vincent. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yes, indeed. Thank you very much for being here today. I was born in St. Vincent, and I grew up in St. Vincent. I have a rural background, and I have an urban background as well. I was born in a village called South Rivers on the east coast of St. Vincent, and I grew up at a time when there was a transition from plantation to small farm. And I moved from the countryside, where I was very comfortable in this rural setting, into the new urban setting of an emerging capital city called Kingston. And there I went to high school and left from high school to go to the university. But in the process of going to high school, I developed a great aptitude towards social organization and became involved in the National Liberation Movement in terms of an activist, an organizer, a trainer, an animator. That's a word that we use in terms of helping to pull people together for transformative development.
Right.
And so I have done quite a bit of organizing, and particularly been involved in the internal workings of many of the organizations. As a young person in St. Vincent, the need to find connection with the changing times was very much part of what I was involved with. Because there at that time was the emerging demand for identity as a people and as a nation. And so the nationhood of St. Vincent and Grenadines, away from colonial England, was in the making, and I was part of all that movement of helping to generate in the minds of our young people an identity that was of blackness, of a nation of people that came from somewhere that was not European, because our people had a joint formation that we were part of the British Empire. We went through colonial slavery, and we emerged as an independent country. But in the process, we have been not told in the education that was given to us that our country had the shortest period of slavery in the history of the Caribbean. And before colonialism came, there was a sense of independence in the people of the country. We had this dream within our bones, I would say, of wanting to be identified as a people, because we had come outside of the formal education system to an understanding that we were not always a part of a slave empire, that there were in St. Vincent and the Grenadines persons who had a sense of independence, and they were African. That
And
was
had the shortest history
and the shortest history of slavery,
in
because in 1763, St. Vincent and Grenadines, which had been left alone for all the earlier periods, on an understanding between the Garifuna people who occupied St. Vincent and all the other slave owners who have come to the Caribbean, they were left alone. Until that period in 1763, where there was this agreement between England and France after the Napoleonic War, that St. Vincent would be ceded to the British, and the British came to occupy St. Vincent and Grenadines, in spite of the fact that St. Vincent and Grenadines was never an occupied country by any European power. And so conflict developed between those who were resident on St. Vincent, the black and yellow Caribs, and the English. But we use the word Carib in a generic sense because they were black people who were free not slaves, living on St. Vincent.
The
They have
Garifuna.
come to St. Vincent way back in 1310. And they had set up an independent country that they guarded very fiercely. They guarded their independence. And so when the British came, there was a conflict because the places that were suitable to British plantations were the exact spots on which the Garifuna lived. That is the entire East Coast, where the flattest lands were. The British envied those lands, wanted those lands for sugar plantations. And so there was directly conflicting with the interests of the Garifuna people. And so war broke out, so that there is this nationalistic war that happened on St. Vincent, where the Garifuna and the British entered into large-scale military confrontation.
Okay.
The Garifuna was defeated in 1797, and they were exiled in a very notorious way to Belize. And so the British colonial control of St. Vincent literally began somewhere between 1780 and beyond that. And so by 1834, slavery was over. And so we have a short period of fully fledged established slavery on St. Vincent, which I believe is part of the contribution that I find among Vincentians, that there is a strong fervor against domination.
But some would say that what's going on there today, they have a European Prime Minister, and many are saying that the people have become like docile, like they're not even speaking up, they're not defending themselves. And some people say, well, that's a far cry from our ancestry, you know, the Black Caribs and the Africans who, you know, fought hard against that sort of thing. And people like yourself, frankly, who had that sense of, you know, wanting to make sure St. Vincentians maintain their identity, and the people who, when I grew up, you know, were all the people in charge of anything important in St. Vincent were, most of them I would say, were African descent or Garifuna. So you mentioned a St. Vincent that I should say, cultivated this group of people that are really fierce in their independence, and the fact that we had the shortest history of slavery. But yet today we see almost the reverse there happening. So what do you say to that?
There are two factors, I think, which contribute to this. Is that the people who are in the leadership of today's political system in St. Vincent, most of them grew out or were products of this national trust for independence and against foreign domination and control. They were all products of that. I know some of them personally, and I know what their articulation was during those times in the 70s and 80s. But there is the issue of how do we share political power? And so what we have found happening is that those who came into the possession of political power have taken a decisive decision that they would take hold of this political power and do not share it with the vast majority of people, because it means allowing a broader sway of persons in the country to have a serious conversation and be participants and beneficiaries of all that will come out of this newfound enlarged catchment of benefits that can come when they have political control. So we found that it has been narrowed, and though the people believe that there are something to be received, it has removed from most of persons' minds that desire to be free. So there's no longer that aspiration for an aspiration and dignity about being my own man, being my own woman, that what I say counts, what I say is important, but you have given it up to someone else to be in charge of not only your destiny, but who literally has control of your hearts and mind. Because that's the second point, that over a period of time, there has evolved in our region, in our part of the world, strategies which are engaged in controlling people's minds and hearts. And there are many different approaches that have been used. Some use the spoken word, some use possession of material things, or position of power, position of in society, or various other elements, that which people hearts lust after or their cravings want. And so on St. Vincent is about housing. People long to have housing. So you allow them access to housing. People want education, so it's about scholarships. People want an airport, so you want to establish an airport which will capture the people's imagination, and their loyalty and allegiance is vested in those who bring those things to the table. And so we have seen a turnabout, a person's willingness to demand of those leaders of our day that which they ought to be given, because they think that their material individual interests have been satisfied.
Right, and so it's not about the country
so it's
as a
no
whole.
longer about the country as a whole. I have been able to have scholarships for my children. I have old age pension. I have a subsidy in terms of my cost of living. You know, we now have an airport, so we are among just like our neighbors. Just as good as anybody else.
Okay.
You know? So those who brought those things are being seen as saviors of the country. But as time progresses, we are seeing that it is not enough. And we fall short of what we ought to be having. Because all that which should be our democratic rights, our human rights, are being sacrificed in order to keep that particular group of people in a position of control and power.
So now we're now at Trinity Apostolic Church in Brooklyn, and we're here because you're having a book signing. And we talked before the interview started, and you were telling me, giving me a generalization in terms of what motivated the writing of this book. So can you tell us a little bit about we have some background information on you. We know what motivated you to be this kind of a free-thinking person that you are. And so you're here writing this book called Angels of the Caribbean, or you've written this book called Angels of the Caribbean. And you're here with this book signing. So tell us in your own words, what motivated the book? Give us some general sense of what the book is about.
Like most of our people in the Caribbean, I too have aspirations. Aspirations have been materialistic. Aspirations have been also in terms of this whole issue of how free and how much that the freedom that has been in my ancestry can manifest itself in my future. And so for a long time, I wrestled with this idea of how to reconcile my freedom as an individual, my freedom as part of this whole Caribbean reality, as a nation of people in the world, and what I need to do to ensure that this freedom is not taken away from me. And at the same time, how can I provide for my family so that they can be well and well taken care of, and they can have a future like the one that I've enjoyed as a boy growing up, and even better than that. And so I came to a contradiction in my reality, that the more I struggle, the more I found that I'm tied up. The more I try to wriggle out of this man-made reality, is the more confused it is. When I look all around me, all those empires and those countries that I use as models, they were falling into corruption. They were falling into abuse of power. They were falling into shortage and hardship for the people. And at the same time, we see the elevation of one set of persons who are getting richer and who is getting poorer. And I ask myself, what it is that I'm doing? What is it I'm building? What is this reality that I'm helping to change? And I began looking in a serious way at what motivates human beings like myself and these very same leaders. What is it that motivated them? And I discovered by reading, and I am an avid reader, and I've been looking at all the different philosophies and all the different world systems, that I have tried to promise people a world that is without the blemishes that we see today. But the more we aspire towards this man-made world, is the more corrupt it seems to be. And I came to the view, reading, going back to my roots and looking at the biblical understanding. Among the other understandings that are there, I found that the major flaw is a human flaw. The human flaw, in the sense that we have cravings, and a lot of our cravings are self-driven. We seek to survive in spite of everything else, at the expense of somebody else. And where there are material benefits to be had, we want it for ourselves. And very often, sometimes we represent a larger body, but in the process, we want to acquire it only for ourselves and our family.
So the common
at the
good.
expense. So the common good is not the central focus of a man-oriented philosophy. Because look at the Soviet Union, why it fell. Corruption on one hand, excess of power, and abuse of others, so that one particular view can be held in sway, or one particular opinion. And I see that around the world, in Africa, and even in the Caribbean, and even at home, that when those who became leaders, all that the things that they advanced when they were in opposition, once they get into power, the coin slip.
But some people may say that those people were probably always that way, and there's a whole con game that they sometimes go through. They tell people what they want to hear. They tear down the guy who's, sometimes the other guy is doing wrong. But they'll do that, but when they get in power, they're not really different. They probably, there's some people who say they make, when somebody is in opposition, they say one thing, and then they fight against certain things. When they get into power, what they're doing becomes child's play compared to what the other side that they were tearing down.
Come back to the basic question. It is a human enterprise.
Right.
It is where my heart is. It is the thing that I want. And my selfishness.
It's me.
It's me. It's all about me. And not about that other orientation.
Right.
It's not being other-centric. It's not being looking after the welfare of anyone else. It's all about me. And in that situation, I begin to have some serious doubts. But at the same time I'm having this doubt, I begin to experience some of this contradiction in my whole life.
Right.
That the people who I believed and worked with and advanced as comrades became some of the same ones who did certain things to me that I would never have believed would have been possible. That I experienced loss.
Do we see some of that stuff in the book?
It's mentioned in the book.
It's mentioned, okay.
But it wasn't detailed in the book.
Okay.
Subsequent writings, I would deal with that. Okay. But I have had experience where I sought to give up my expertise in the transformation of the health industry, but for short-term political interest of those who were in power, it was cut down. And people were presented with a story which was not what it was like, what really happened. And I said, if they could do that to me, all the stories that I've been there and all the things that I've seen, it is possible there's some truth in all of that.
Right.
So I began to look closer at some of these things. And what I found happening is that some people's stories bore elements of what I was talking about, what I experienced.
So you started to get an awakening in terms of...
I woke up. I woke up. And then I reconciled my awakening with my early Christian orientation and Christian knowledge. So I went back to the church. And I found, again, the faith that I used to have. At the point where I began to experience this transformative faith, it's like a blow from nowhere came and struck me, which was this accident.
Oh, car accident. Okay. Okay.
Right by the time when I had this contradiction, I found the solution and began to walk in the opposite direction. I had this near-death experience.
Wow.
A near-death experience which was totally unexplainable. I was on the far side of the road, in a very large area of the road, and a vehicle going in the opposite direction left its natural route, came and struck me. On the other side of
Did they use their brakes? Was it intentionally?
To me, it could not have been intentional.
Okay.
I didn't see it as an intentional accident.
Okay. But did he have like a brake fail or something?
He had
Anybody
no
knew?
brake failure.
Mm.
I didn't see that. That was not. They said that he avoided a pothole, and his vehicle went out of control. Struck me on the other side of the road, passed the vehicle, struck a wall, and came to hit my car.
Oh, like a nasty
And
one.
in that instant of that event, I saw the appearance of what I knew in my child to be an angel.
Oh, wow.
Large creature out of this world. At that point of impact. And it wasn't that I was seeing the person with my eyes. I saw the person as real as I'm seeing it. But there is no possibility of what I saw physically entering my car. Because the size could not fit in the car.
So it's a big entity.
Big entity.
Right.
So
Do you
I
think
didn't
that's
see
what
him.
saved you?
Well, I didn't believe.
Okay. But you were you've gone back to your church.
Same to you. I didn't believe. It took me 8 months. 8 long months. And it's on the evidence provided by the people who were there. But this image has never left. I saw something in a split second as real as I'm seeing it. But it was not through my eyes. There was a shield that came around my body. And I woke up and told 3 days after, checked the calendar 3 days after, with my daughter coming through the door, and I thought I was in my home. I saw this, my daughter coming, but I was
Your
not
real
fully
daughter?
aware. My real daughter.
Okay.
So I got up like a person and said, what are you doing? I didn't know you were coming. Why are you here?
Was she aware?
She lived in Jamaica.
Okay.
So she came to St. Vincent as a result of this accident.
And what year was this accident?
2011.
Oh, this is fairly recent.
23rd of November. But it was the day after my wife died.
You
My
had
wife had died 2005 on the 22nd of November.
And then the 23rd,
23rd of November.
6 years later,
6 years later.
you had this
death.
accident. Oh, wow.
And it was just the day, the anniversary of my wife. So I woke up and I had this surreal, real surreal sense of peace and calm and tranquility, as if I was in a totally different place. I had no sense of pain, no sense of anything that was wrong, until I tried to move my leg.
You realized something was wrong.
Move my leg. And my daughter was trying to push me back into the bed. And then I it's awful smell, like when you're there and you're losing of blood and fluids and all that. And antiseptic. She said, to the hospital. I look around the tubes. So I woke up in the hospital, not knowing that I was in the hospital. So I have had that experience. And I woke up out of that experience very transformed. And I went through a process of change that I've never had before, of having to have other people care for me, wait my skin, my private parts. Nobody ever did that except my wife, my life, to depend on other people for my way of it all, because I had no insurance to cover it. And I had to depend on my family and friends to supply whatever I needed.
So
It was very humbling.
it was a humbling experience. What do you want to? What would you say this book is about? I don't know if I'm saying it right. All right, you may have to cut that part. So I'm going to start over after this. So what would you say? What would you say that the story of this book is about in a nutshell? If you were to sum it up, it's a story of grace, a story of survival. What, in your words, is this book about?
It is composite. It combines the disclosure of a very private experience, very personal experience. And in that experience, which was caused by a motor vehicle accident, I experienced what I've read about called grace. I read about faith, but I experienced what it is to have faith. I experienced what it is that what relationship and family and friends mean. I've cultivated relationships and family over a period of time, and I've done very good things with them, because I believe that family is where my friends are from. I have that inner feeling. But the outpouring of people's generosity, of people's prayer and thought, and all of that, it was a tremendous revelation.
Yeah, an awakening.
An awakening that in my community, that people wanted to chop the driver out. That people who came to me and said, on the hospital bed, what do you want me to do? I can't let that happen, so you can't come and do this thing. You know, there are people who came like that. There are people, but when they came, the driver and the owner came without knowing what was happening in that surreal reality. I forgave them on the bed.
Because you know, this is not for you, it's not for the person, it's for you.
It's for me.
Yeah, it's a gift you give yourself.
And I had to remove all of my inner bitterness, anger, whether with that or the people who I have issues with. I have to forgive, cleanse myself for those things. And I read about unforgiveness subsequently, but I was doing it. But I understand it as I was doing it. And so my cleansing and my transformation became not just medical. I had a medical experience.
You had a spiritual transformation as well.
And then I had a psychosocial experience, which along with my spiritual experience. So I became deeper and deeper grounded.
Okay.
And the more I get into it, is the better I become.
You felt. Okay, so as we're getting ready to wrap up the interview portion, and then we're going to be capturing some other stuff with the book signing itself, because I see a lot of your guests are coming in and they're getting ready and they want your attention, so we don't want to monopolize you all evening. Right. But you seem like you have a lot to say, and I think we're going to learn a lot in the book. So let me get a copy of the book. This is your book, Angels of the Caribbean, by Chronicle of Resilience, Glenroy Browne. And so I'm sure from just talking to you, you seem like you have a lot of wisdom that you can impart, and I'm sure that was displayed in the book. And so I enjoy reading my copy, and I'm sure the audience could pick up a copy and learn something as well. Where is this book available?
It's available on Google, Amazon, and Barnes & Noble. It can be found as you could get it as an ebook.
Okay. It's an ebook as well. Okay.
And there will be sellers. I will be in different churches in New York, and I'm looking forward to going as wide a field as the whole of the United States.
Right.
with the book and
So you're going to be having
Caribbean.
several
Several
book
events.
signings, book signings. This is a book launch, but you're going to be having several book
Signings in
signings
different
around the
places.
Caribbean, around America, etc. So if you want a copy of this book, you can get it on Google, you can get it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's also available in ebooks. The Angels of the Caribbean: A Chronicle of Resilience by Glenroy Browne. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. You're welcome anytime. Okay, thanks.
So I call you Sister Trish. What is going to put in here? Towards a growing relationship.
Yes.